Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the special city council meeting of December 1st, 2021. It is 1:35 p.m. We're sorry we ran a little late in closed session. Today, I'm joined by the entire city council. Pursuant to Assembly Bill 361, this meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means. Members of the city council may teleconference into the meeting without noticing each teleconference location from which a member is participating in a public meeting. The meeting will be broadcast on CTV Channel 3, and the live stream of the meeting may be viewed online at www.cityofcalabasas.com/CTV Live. If you plan to provide public comment, please press raise hand if you're joining via Zoom, or *9 if you're joining via phone, and *6 to unmute yourself. Please state your name and the city you live in. You'll be allowed 3 minutes to address the city council regarding any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. In the event a quorum of the city council loses electrical power or suffers an internet connection outage not corrected within 15 minutes, or in the event a disruption which prevents the city from broadcasting the meeting and receiving comment from members of the public using Zoom or a telephone call-in system, then the meeting will be adjourned. Any items noticed as public hearings will be continued to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the city council. Any other agenda items the council has not taken action on will be placed on a future agenda. The Pledge of Allegiance, Mari, you're our default person. I mean, not that it's bad to have you do it, but you're the only face I see other than.
Please do it. Please join me in saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before I hear a motion to approve the agenda, can I ask, Alicia, are you okay with the order at this point? I know we're running a little late. Okay, so may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kraut?
Aye.
Councilmember Shapiro?
Yes.
Councilmember Weintraub?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mauer?
Aye.
Mayor Bosajian?
Aye.
Carries 5-0, Mr. Mayor.
As I previously indicated, we've just come out of closed session. Again, we apologize for being late. So let me turn to our city attorney, Matthew Summers, and ask if there's anything to report out of closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city council met in closed session to consider 2 items of anticipated litigation related to facts and circumstances that may result in litigation, but which the city believes are not yet known to potential plaintiff or plaintiffs. City council provided direction to staff and council and took no reportable action. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move to presentations. And we have one presentation to make to a retiring city employee, Jill Nevins. Mari, can you bring her into the panel?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Jill, are you here with us, Jill? Hi.
Hi, I am.
Okay, Jill, we have something for you, but we don't have it here right now. We'll be giving it to you, something physical at a later date, a nice little plaque for you for your memorial, memorialize your service here. But I'm going to read a little biography of you. So you're retiring this year. You were hired as a library technician in September 2005 and later promoted to library specialist. In the past 16 years with the city, Jill has been the person for all things children in the Calabasas Library. Weekly story times, crafts, book clubs, summer and winter programming, and art activities are just a few of the things she has done. She implemented innovative programs such as Reading to Dogs, Sensory Story Times, 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, and Picturing America with a grant from the National Endowment of the Humanities. Jill curated the children's book collection, helped innumerable patrons, young and old, with book selections, created book lists and library displays. She hosted classroom and scout troop visits to the library, as well as going into schools to share library services. She helped in the creation of the Literally Healing Reading Festival for Children's Hospital Los Angeles, hosted regular game days, holiday art activities, and a summer pen pal program. This job has been fueled by her passion for children's literature and desire to spark a love of reading in all children. So as I said, a tall plaque will be provided to you at a later date. Jill, would you like to say anything?
Thank you. I have really enjoyed working with the city as a citizen, as a resident. It's been really my pleasure. It was said in the biography that this is truly a job of passion. So I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Would anyone like to say anything? Yes, Alicia?
Just wanted to say thank you to Jill and congratulations on this milestone. Jill has a secret talent that she can find the perfect book for every young child. And I know that both my kids are better readers and their love of books because of your help early on when you would always help guide me with the perfect book. So thank you for everything you do.
David?
I just want to congratulate you and thank you, Jill. I've known Jill and the family since all our kids were young, and really you do an amazing job. And all the kids love you. I mean, I go into the library and children's reading room, and they're knocking me over to get to you or go hear what you're doing or listen to what you're reading for all those years. And you really brought a lot of pleasure to so many in our city, in addition to knowledge and what you did with literally healing, and we all care so greatly about, is tremendous. And just wish you the best. And thank you, and thank you.
Mary Sue?
Jill, I was really sad when I got the news that you were going to be retiring. You are the ultimate ambassador for reading and for our library. Your invisible hand was everywhere in creating programs and changing lives and whatnot. So I wish you the best of luck. I know you'll have plenty of time to read, but let me ask you, what's your favorite children's book?
That's a loaded question. I think that probably my favorite children's book is The Very Hungry Caterpillar, because it has so many concepts that are always relevant. I mean, everything from the simple things of colors and days of the week and numbers to the idea of change. That's what the book's about.
Yeah, that's a beautiful parting gift from you. Thank you very much.
Peter?
Jill, I'm so sorry I didn't get to know you during my short time here at the city, but I just want to weigh in with the rest of my fellow council members and congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one member of the public with a hand raised. Mari, if we could bring in Barbara Lockwood, our librarian.
Please stand, Mr. Mayor.
Barbara? If you unmute yourself. Barbara? There we go.
Hi. Thank you. I don't need to repeat all the great things that Jill has done over the years. She's been an integral part of our Calabasas community. And the patrons are really, really going to miss her, as well as the library staff, because she's not just a coworker and a friend, but she's part of our library family. And the good news is that she will be here for the next month. So please, members of the public, stop by and say goodbye to Jill. And she's still part of Calabasas. She lives in Calabasas, so we hope to keep seeing her around. Thank you. And thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Jill. I don't see any other hands from the audience. Is that correct, Mari?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
So we are going to move on and wish you the best, Jill, and we'll get you that plaque as soon as it comes in.
Thank you.
Okay. Then I'm going to turn to council announcements. David?
Happy Hanukkah, happy holidays to everyone. That's it.
Peter?
I'll wish the same. Happy Hanukkah and happy holidays to everyone. That's all I've got, James.
Mary Sue?
The same. Happy holidays, everybody.
Alicia?
Well, I share the holiday greetings to everyone as well, but also I just wanted to acknowledge the tragedy that took place in Michigan. I have decided that one of the only good things that came out of a national lockdown was that we were not reporting on school shootings. So Just thought that we should take a moment to recognize the 4 lives that were lost in Michigan at the high school. And their names were Tate Meyer, Hannah St. Julian, Madison Baldwin, and Justin Schilling. And the stories about the contributions they made to their communities and families keep coming out. And it's just something that we have to all collectively keep fighting for, so these things don't continue to happen.
Okay, I have several announcements. I wanted to, you can't see this on Zoom. This is a very nice framed certificate from Viewpoint School, thanking us and the Community Services Department for our 60-year partnership. Viewpoint is turned 60 this year, and we wish them a happy birthday. They're twice as old as us. I wanted to thank the Calabasas Shul for last night. All of us were there. They hosted once again the menorah lighting ceremony at the Commons, as they have since 1998, without fail. One would say religiously every year. And thank you once again for allowing us the honor of collectively lighting a candle on the menorah. So thank you, Rabbi Van, Calabasas Shul. I wanted to mention that the redistricting debate goes on. They're finalizing their maps. If you wish to get your testimony in either verbally or in writing, there's only a few days left to do it. The county maps will be propounded, the final maps, on December 15th, and the state maps on December 27th. Thank you to those of you who have testified and sent letters. On December 10th, the Senior Center is holding its holiday cheer party. You do have to pre-register in advance, and there's a small fee. We're also encouraging you to help participate in the Senior Toy Drive, which is the Senior Center is conducting right now. And on December 12th, we're partnering with the Calabasas Rotary Club to do, in lieu of our breakfast with Santa or our snow day or Santa's arrival in town, Santa is going aboard our red and green trolley, and we'll be making 2 stops. One stop will be at the Civic Center and one stop will be at Great Barber Park. We have additional information online for you there. Those are my announcements. Moving right along. I guess I should wish everybody a happy holiday as well. Well, now we turn to oral communications and public comment. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on an item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council, but not on the agenda tonight, may do so at this time. You'll be limited to 3 minutes or less. So if you would like to speak on an unagendized item, please raise your hand so that we can see it. I don't see any hands raised. Is anyone called in, Mari?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so there I'm closing public comment. Consent items, we have items 1 through 5. Would any council members like to pull any of the consent items off the agenda for discussion? Okay, is there anybody in the audience? Please raise your hand at this time if you'd like to speak on any item 1 through 5, and we will pull it for your comment. I see no hands. Has anyone called in, Mari?
No, Mr. Mayor. No calls, no hands.
In that case, I'd entertain a motion regarding items 1 through 5.
Motion to move items 1 through 5.
Second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kraut,
Yes.
Councilmember Weintraub,
Yes.
Councilmember Shapiro,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mauer,
Aye.
Mayor Bosajian.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. We're turned to new business. Item number 6 is a city council discussion and direction regarding COVID-19 vaccination requirements for city facilities. Kendon, you have a presentation to make.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and I will share my screen. And council, are you able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Council, I will go through this quickly. This is in essence a summary of what was in the staff report, but I do want to highlight a couple of items as we go through this. As noted in the staff report, the council and the city manager took action in March regarding the pandemic and the emergency declaration. More recently, the city has taken action to implement policies regarding city employees and a vaccination mandate for city employees to be vaccinated or to be able to provide negative tests to continue to work at city facilities. What we're looking at this afternoon is a discussion on whether the council should implement a policy on city facilities and requiring vaccinations or a negative test for the public to participate in events or activities at public facilities. As noted, there are several cities in the area that have already taken these initiatives. In our county, West Hollywood, Culver City, Los Angeles have done so. I do want to point out that a couple of these cities, their ordinances or their resolutions not only cover city facilities, but do extend to businesses within their communities. And so again, that's not the intent of this discussion. What we are presenting today is merely a discussion on city facilities. I also want to point out that West Hollywood, well, I'll come back to that on West Hollywood. A couple of the things to consider as we move forward in this discussion is what is the overall purpose of a vaccine verification requirement? What resources will be required to implement such a policy? Which city of Calabasas facilities will require verification? Will the city accept a negative COVID test in lieu of vaccination? The age groups that will be affected, and will the city consider exemptions, as in some cases, the cities that were mentioned previously do? As we've talked as staff and as we've looked at this collectively as in our executive team meetings and other discussions, we see the importance of a vaccination verification requirement and that it does show the city's continued efforts to protect the public health and well-being of residents and staff. It also would be a way to make consistent what is already happening with city employees to the general public in regards to our facilities. And then finally, it's also a proactive effort as we look at the potential surge. We know that there's variants to the coronavirus already in the state. And we know that as in past months, there are surges of positive cases after holidays and group gatherings. And so this gives us an opportunity to be proactive on that. What resources would be required or what questions do we need to look at as we implement any type of directive or policy? And that would have to do with staffing and other contracted service costs associated with that. Any time, materials, equipment, software that might need to be purchased, and then also enforcement assistance as we consider this. And that is one thing I do want to point out is, as we've discussed this at the staff level, both community services and the library expressed that the enforcement just with the masks was perhaps the hardest aspect of the last few months for staff at all levels to deal with, as they were, mistreated or verbally abused or shamed or whatever that might be. And so that's a very real issue that we wanted to point out. So at this point, I'd like to look at some specific components should the council decide to provide direction on this. The facilities that would require vaccination. I've listed those that we've talked about at the staff level: City Hall, Deanza Park, Calabasas, Tennyson Swim Center, the Senior Center, the library, and then also not specifically a city-owned facility, but potentially programmed by the city is the community center as well. And as we come back and have more of a discussion on each of these, it would also entail would rental facilities or rental of these different facilities require vaccination, meaning an outside group rents Founders Hall or other space, would they be required to show proof of vaccination for the entire group, and how would that be enforced? As noted in the staff report, several of the other cities have allowed for patrons to their facilities to, in lieu of a vaccination, to provide proof of a negative COVID test. The cities that we've looked at, the three, West Hollywood, Culver City, and Los Angeles, all have set the number of hours at 72 hours. So an individual could come into a city facility if they show proof of a negative test that has been taken in the recent 72 hours. On the age, there's some difference there. West Hollywood and Culver City require either a negative test or a vaccination for anyone 18 and older. The city of Los Angeles, this is a little bit confusing as we've looked at their policy. Confusing in the sense that, again, it covers much broader than just city facilities. They do mention, for example, gyms or museums, libraries, and so forth, and not specifically mentioning if these are city-owned facilities, but their policy states that initially it stated that anyone who is eligible to receive the vaccination would be required or to be tested. And just recently, just in the last couple of weeks, they modified that. Instead of the 5 to 11-year-old group, they changed it to anyone 12 and older is required to show the vaccination or to test. City of West Hollywood does provide an exemption, meaning public meetings, Brown Act meetings, which would be city council or commission meetings. Those do not require vaccination, proof of vaccination or a test. They do request temperature checks, and they also provide, as we've done throughout the pandemic, viewing and commenting options that are virtual or remote. And then finally, just some items to discuss and get direction on is the enforcement of a vaccination policy. And what we've looked at is when cities can accommodate for services, those are made. So this, for example, could be, and this is not required, but an example might be that somebody comes to the building and safety or planning counter. They're not vaccinated and they don't have proof. Should the staff desire, the staff could accommodate and set up a table outside and hold that meeting with that individual to review plans or review questions. Again, that's an accommodation that could be made or an allowance. Some cities have declined services or prohibited access to programs altogether. And we'd also like to have a discussion about either revoking or suspending membership. This would be at the Tennyson Swim or perhaps at the Senior Center, and what that might look like. And then finally, the best way to implement the vaccination verification, if the council so chooses. The fastest way to do so would be through providing direction to staff through an executive order. Then it would come back and be confirmed by the city council. Otherwise, we would wait until another scheduled meeting to do a resolution ordinance. So with that, I would like to go back and just maybe start with the initial question, looking at the overall purpose and desire of the council is there consensus from the council to implement vaccination requirements for city facilities? And
actually, Kendon, I'm going to do public comment first, and then
Okay.
the council's going to discuss, if that's okay. You can go through your points as soon as I'm done here.
Thank you. Okay.
Taking public comment. So I'm looking at the audience and I do not see any hands raised. Now, this is going to be your opportunity to comment on what's before you. We're not going to take additional public comment afterwards. So if you wish to speak on this subject, you have 3 minutes or less, and you may do so at this time. Mari, I don't see any hands raised.
There is
And
none, Mr. Mayor.
What?
I have no public comments.
okay, no one's called in?
No, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to close the public comment, and Kendon, you can go back to your whoops, something happened.
Switch that.
Okay, I thought that was me. All right, go ahead through your questions. On this screen, just before you start, we're missing Creekside Park, which has a building, so you have to add that. And as far as the community center goes, we don't really have jurisdiction over that. So we could defer this, and it's closed for anyways. So I defer that for now.
Got it. Okay.
So please note, we got to ask everybody about Creekside as well.
Yeah, and thank you. That was an oversight on my part, Mayor.
Oh, well, that's okay. Go ahead.
So again, I first and foremost, is there a consensus from the council to implement a vaccination verification directive in the city for city facilities.
All right, general question. Is everybody on board with this concept? David,
Yes, absolutely.
Peter,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
and Mary Sue?
Yes.
Okay. So, and me, yes. So, okay, proceed.
So thank you. Then from this list and including Creekside and perhaps excluding the community center at this time, is there any city facilities that we do not want to consider or discuss at this time?
I had a question for you, Kendon. When we say, now some of these are buildings and some are, kind of both. Like the tennis center, there's an outdoor component where somebody could go and never really be in the building other than to check in. And like Danza Park has a building, but most people don't go in there, but some people do for an event, like a party or something. And then we have Creekside, which is half and half. And we have even like the amphitheater. What is the amphitheater? Is that considered part of the rest of City Hall where we would require it or not? So I think we need to clarify that in what you're asking.
And Mayor, that's a good question. And really what this is focusing on is indoor facilities. So anything that would be inside the building. For example, Deanza does have the community room that is used for classes or workshops. And so that would pertain to that, not to the outside courts.
Okay, Peter?
I would like to suggest that we also exclude restrooms that are directly accessible from the outdoors so that somebody utilizing Deanza Park or Great Barber Park could access the restrooms. We would not be requiring a vaccination status there. And regarding your comment on the swim center, on the swim center, it's my understanding that to get to the tennis courts, they have to travel indoors, so the vaccine would be required there. Although, outdoor rules would apply once they get back outdoors again. I don't know how they'd get there without a vaccine status check.
Kendon, would it be possible for someone to play tennis without? I mean, if someone's going to play tennis, all they do is check in at the front, right?
That's correct. And Mayor, before I go on with that, I think Alicia had a question. And
oh,
do you want to ask that? And then
Yeah. I think whatever we're going to do, we should make it as simple as possible for enforcement. Like, to me, if you're going to the tennis and swim center and we have that listed, it wouldn't matter to me indoor or outdoor, because it's impossible to know. Some people play tennis and then they use the locker room. Some people there's a lot of people are utilizing the entire facility, even if you're swimming or playing tennis. So I don't think I would try to break facilities up, but that's just my opinion.
Okay.
And Councilmember Weintraub, you answered that better than I was. That's the staff's recommendation, that if we designate a facility, it's the entire facility. Whether or not they choose to do different activities at the tennis and swim center, because we do have patrons or members who will come in and swim in the morning and then go right into a fitness class or right into the weight room or whatever that might be. And so there is no process for somebody coming in and checking in twice or not checking in. And so we would just recommend, for simplicity, to just do a blanket policy over the facility.
My opinion would be that's fine. I would exclude Deanza Park and Creekside unless someone was going in the building because they don't have to check in.
Yes, again, that would only be for the indoor facilities, the room that's used for classes.
In fact, right now I don't know that we're renting out the indoor facility at Danza. I think it's closed, but all right, let's other council members. I'm sorry, Mary Sue, I didn't see your hand.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to agree with the consensus here that it's all of Calabasas Tennyson Swim Center and all the other comments that were made by our city manager and staff and council.
Okay, David?
I'm in consensus also. All facilities indoors, keep it simple. At this time, all facilities and We're just asking that one question right now, that the facilities, nothing further, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Next question.
And so let me just lead into that. So now that we've identified facilities, vaccination verification, if for facility rentals, we're not doing that right now, but there's been a request that we start doing so. Staff would recommend, for simplicity, that we don't try to enforce that. That becomes very difficult, especially after hours, and then to try to monitor for an entire group. Instead, staff would probably suggest an increased cleaning fee or sanitation fee, and that would allow staff to come in and sanitize the facility or the room after it was used before any other use. But looking for direction on that.
Anyone have a problem with that? Let's do it that way. I don't see any hands, so we can move on.
It should come with an indemnity though, right?
I'll jump in on that one if I may. And yes, the recommendation would be to take our existing indemnity agreement, which is already baked into the facility rental agreement, and add any COVID liability as well.
All right, Mary Sue?
Well, I just wondered what the other 3 cities that we're using as models who have already embarked on this do in this area.
Yeah, and so Mayor Pro Tem, this is where I think it's a little bit maybe with West Hollywood, for example. If you read through their policy, they list all of the facilities that are covered. But as staff did research over the last few days, most of the facilities or the buildings aren't open. And so they're not even dealing with this issue. Only City Hall is open, and they have a security guard that is there. And even City Hall is only open by appointment. Not even their entire staff is back. So only about 50% of their staff is back, and it's only by appointment. And so again, they haven't crossed this bridge because they have a policy in place, but it's not really being played out.
Yeah, I would actually entertain postponing this decision just for a bit, because if we're going to have it well known about a new policy of vaccination verification or negative tests, it's going to be confusing the public. They'll go to maybe a fundraising event or a social event. Someone wants to put on a bingo game, and they'll think that they're going into a controlled, checked environment, and they're not. It might require posting of an alert about that. So I just think we need more information on this area.
Okay, Alicia?
I completely agree. I would hold off on running any of our city facilities until we could figure that one out. So I'm in support of that recommendation.
David?
I'd agree with that as well, unless we could put them in the same fold we're doing with other city facilities and somehow find a way that they could have proof of the negative test and or vaccination, depending on what we decide.
Peter?
Yeah, I'd just like to throw out a different idea. Perhaps we do require that vaccination is required for facility rentals. However, we put the burden on checking that on the person who rents the facility. That, coupled with the indemnity, allows us to keep our policy uniform across the board, whether we're using it for a city event or a private event. That takes the burden of checking it away from staff, because that would become very difficult for private events. And the indemnity would allow us to really just defer to the person who is renting the facility to enforce the rules.
Like we did for the film festival.
Well, they were responsible though, and we don't know all these private parties that may or may not do that. I would I agree with most of you who want to just defer this until later. We're not renting right now, are we, Kendon?
I don't think we've had some requests, not necessarily rentals, but use of facilities by outside agencies, trainings, seminars, things like that.
I think all those trainings and seminars, if they're during the daytime, proof of vaccination would be easier to check. I'm thinking more of the evening activities, but I think I agree with what Mary Sue said, that once this policy, if it's passed, people are going to have an expectation for our city facilities, and I'd like to see that followed through. So, I mean, I like where Peter's going with it, because it does put the burden on the people that they are going to check and follow the city, what I hope would be our city policy.
And Matt, I was going to ask you to chime in on that. Is that something that we could easily do with the rentals, is put the burden back on those who are renting it, that they verify that participants or patrons are fully vaccinated?
Yeah, Ken, and I think we would do that through a COVID addendum to the rental agreement that would include the indemnity and a clear requirement for anybody who's renting the facility for an event to implement a vaccination requirement, a copy of the vaccination policy, and their agreement in writing that they will do so. It's not a guarantee that they will do so, but it gives us an enforceable obligation for them to do so.
Got it.
So I do think that would work on the legal side.
Excellent.
Okay.
We'll continue and we'll come back to that. I think we have two really good possible ideas. And so either deferring or putting that burden on. Let me go to the next item. Is there consensus from the council to allow a negative COVID test in lieu of a vaccination?
I would like to, so we don't have to ask people what their religious beliefs are or risk litigation. Yes, Peter?
Yeah, I definitely think we should allow for a negative COVID test. I don't think we should ask for the reason that they're not vaccinated. We should just accept either the vaccination or the COVID test. And I would like to continue that thought and suggest that we go with the 72 hours, the least stringent of other areas. I want to make sure that we're being safe here, but I also am concerned about the city becoming a trendsetter on the cutting edge here, requesting 24-hour COVID tests, which sometimes are difficult to get.
Okay. I saw another hand up. Did someone drop their hand? 72 hours. Yes, I agree with that. David?
I agree with alternative of negative COVID test. I was not going to recommend 24. I was going to recommend 48 hours, but I will certainly go along with the majority here.
Okay. Is everyone okay with us? Oh, I'm sorry, Mary Sue, you didn't weigh in. Sorry.
I did just have a question. I agree with this, but anticipating that there will be a time, hopefully in the near future, where indoor masks are no longer required in buildings. I'd like to see that individuals who are not vaccinated maintain masks as it happened for a short period of time.
Alicia?
I'm supportive of the PCR test. I also was thinking possibly 48, but I'll support 72 as well, but not 24, because sometimes it takes longer than that to get your results back.
Okay, and I wanted to add something to what Mary Sue said. I'm supportive of that, Mary Sue, the mask requirement for unvaccinated, but I would ask that you not post that outside because it might cause confusion that people who are vaccinated will take off their masks or think they don't have to. So I would not post that until the mask requirement's gone. Peter?
Yeah, regarding the masks, I really strongly suggest that we just stick with the LA County Health Department guidelines. In the last round, when vaccines became an issue, they did require that masks were required for the unvaccinated inside. I think to avoid any sort of confusion, and again, to just go with people that are certainly more knowledgeable about this sort of stuff than I personally am, I would suggest we just stick with LA County Health Department guidelines on masks.
I assumed we would, but at some point, if they became more lenient than we would, I would agree with that, but I just want to make sure that we are nimble enough to, and we are, to follow the county if it becomes more relaxed. Right now, it just kind of says all you have to do is, the county trumps anything we do. We can't go easier than the.
Right.
No, but you're right. We can be more restrictive. So.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I think you got your direction on that, on those two questions, Kendon.
Yeah, just clarify, I heard both 48 hours, 72 hours.
I think a majority said 72 hours and yes on the only vaccinated or 72-hour test.
What is the county's requirement?
The county for facilities.
LA County.
They don't have one.
They don't have one.
You may be thinking of Los Angeles City, which is 72 hours.
Los Angeles, Culver City, and West Hollywood are all 72 hours.
So, okay, so the county doesn't have it. That's interesting. Okay, thank you.
No, but the county is very supportive of cities doing it.
Great.
All right, next screen, please.
Age for either vaccination or negative test.
Alicia,
I would recommend 18.
David,
Why?
18
Why?
would be fine with
Well-
me. I know 12 in some cities I saw on the list as well.
I'm afraid to penalize, and we can just, it's obviously, I'm interested to hear what everyone else says. I'm just afraid to penalize children who can't make the decision on their own, but I'm obviously open to hearing what other people would say. And I think that it might put us at less legal risk mandating it for adults and children. But maybe Matt, you can weigh in.
I think that from a legal perspective, we would have the power, because we would be allowing a negative test as an option, to require the vaccination mandate to go below 18 for persons who can get a vaccine, which I think right now is
It's five. It's
Five
five.
and up. But I also think the point in terms of reducing litigation risk, setting it at 18 and above eliminates that as a claim that a child wouldn't be able to utilize the library or the TSC or another facility absent a decision I can't control.
also, it seems to me that, although they can get vaccinated, it's not been that long. People 18 and above have had a lot longer to get vaccinated. So it seems a little bit, I might be willing to change it in the future, but not when so little time has been given to them. Peter?
Oh, yeah, James, you just made my point. The vaccine for adults has been around for 12 months, available to the public widely for the last 8 months, and we're just now mandating it. It's kind of a little jump in the gun to require it for the 12 and up at this point in time.
I mean, the kids with 12 and up was authorized in May, so.
All right, I've heard a majority say 18, so that seems to be the consensus majority, Kendon.
Got it. Exemptions, anything regarding Brown Act meetings?
We don't need that.
West Hollywood is the only one doing this, and we have remote and virtual set up if we need to. So,
But they're the ones that, the reason they need that is because they have excuse, and you can't just say, here's a negative test. So if as long as we don't question religious or medical excuses, I think we can require, unless Matt, you say otherwise, we can require a negative test.
Agreed. I think we can. And that's the model that Culver City and Los Angeles have done. So I don't think there's no legal need for the West Hollywood Brown Act exemption.
Plus, we're still on Zoom. Maybe we revisit this issue if and when we decide to eliminate the Zoom option. So we give them that option anyways.
correct. Okay, good. Have direction on that. And then last one, enforcement or for non-compliance. I think here is the biggest concern from staff is what recourse does the city have if people refuse or become offensive or rude or whatever that might be, choose not to. During the last few months, those, especially with the Tennyson Swim Center, membership was suspended. So that meant that individuals didn't lose their membership. But all that meant was that they weren't paying and they kept their membership. And so I just wanted to explore that a little bit more of would the council entertain that memberships are revoked either at the senior center or the Tennyson Swim Center?
What does revoke mean? Not suspended? You mean they're gone?
Revoked, meaning that their membership is forfeited. And so once the pandemic is open and this mandate is lifted, they could reapply for membership. But in the case of Tennyson Swim, they would be at the end of the line just and wait for like anybody else.
Okay, that's like a, all right, I got it.
Yeah.
All right, let's all weigh in on that. David, your hand was up first.
Thanks. My thought is not to penalize someone that way and revoke any membership, but suspend both for senior center, tennis center, any other facilities. They would not be allowed to access or use the facilities, but certainly don't put them at the end of the list to start all over again, whether it's 3 months, 6 months. I don't know how long we'll be in this situation, but I would say suspend.
Okay, Alicia, I saw your hand next.
I also would just say place on hold.
Peter, your hand?
Yes, I would agree. We should just place their membership on hold and let them keep their place in line for when they are eligible to rejoin, whether we drop the vaccine requirement or they get vaccinated. They should be able to immediately restart their membership. Also on the slide in front of us here, the question of accommodations for services, I think the city needs to be prepared to do that, to be reasonable accommodations, which means you'll want to get that planned out ahead of time. What do reasonable accommodations look like in the event, for example, of the Tennyson Swim Center creating an alternate entrance to the tennis courts for somebody who's not vaccinated? I don't think that's reasonable because that would require additional staff and who knows what else. But we'll want to come up with other ways that we can accommodate people so that we can serve the public without getting the city into trouble.
Mary Sue?
Kindon, staff has had a tough time, and you started this discussion with that, and I've heard that as well, both at the Senior Center and the Tennyson Swim Center, where we do have memberships. Is it their recommendation that we revoke membership status?
Yes, in fact, I have Erica, I think is still on. Mari, is it possible to bring Erica in?
I will.
Thank you. And I know Barbara was on earlier. We can't, deny, you can't take away the library card, but really looking at Tennyson Swim and Senior Center.
Barbara's back in. Let me bring her in.
I would like to hear from them. Thank you for doing this. Because I think this is the toughest part about what we're doing, and
It is.
we need
So-
to.
Not Barbara. Where's
Both are
Erica?
in. Erica's in too, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, where's Erica?
I see her.
Oh, there she is. I'm sorry, you're in the middle.
Hi.
Okay, I see you now.
Hi. For the Tennyson Swim Center, the staff does recommend terminating the membership. During the mask mandate, it took a lot of staff time to do the suspension. So when someone had to suspend, they had every month the staff had to go in and suspend it through the software application. In addition, some of the members canceled or suspended membership during, let's just say, opportune times for them. So they feel like with the vaccination, that may be the case, where they may be vaccinated, but may still want to suspend the membership as an opportunity for them. So they said they were losing about $10,000 a month at that time for the mask mandate just by suspensions. So they are recommending to terminate memberships. The Senior Center can go either way, whatever we decide there.
Eric, what was some of the behaviors they encountered?
At the Tennyson Swim was probably the most physical. Rain was approached in a physical manner quite a few times. At the Senior Center, the same thing. They called code enforcement from planning to come over there and help them. People who would not physically leave the building, even after several attempts. So, or yelling and screaming that they didn't want to do it, things like that. So it was a lot of verbal abuse. And then there were quite a few physical altercations that staff had to deal with.
Okay, well, I'm sure none of those were our residents. They were all from outside the city. Let me just throw this out though, Erica.
Sure.
I really am reluctant to terminate a membership at the tennis center because it there's a horrible wait list.
I know, yes.
And I really don't want to do that. So I would not be in favor of that at all. I don't, so a few people abuse it. I mean, we can't really control it. That's the way these times are. I wouldn't terminate someone's membership. I also don't understand why would somebody be turned away from the tennis center if they were able to get a negative COVID test? You mean they're refusing to take the test? Is that what it is?
That's the assumption, yes, that if they're not vaccinated and they don't want to take the test, that they're going to say it's a public facility, they should be allowed to use it. And then that's when it gets physical. So,
okay,
yeah.
well, if we're going to do this on an experimental level, which it looks like the council has pretty much consensus that we're going to enact something, I would strongly recommend enacting it and having a suspension rather than a revocation and seeing how it goes, because we don't know how many people are going to comply. A lot of people say they're not going to comply, but if they're given an alternative to do an actual test, they might do that rather than leave the membership. So I would suggest a pilot period and waiting to see how many people actually suspend. I think it's not going to be very many. Alicia?
I was just going to say, I'm still not in support of the suspension, but I would appreciate an update from staff once this would go into effect. And if you are encountering these situations, please make sure that we become aware of that, so that we might need to come back and relook at this one item. But I think.
What do you mean you're not in favor of the suspension? I didn't. Which
No,
one?
Sorry. I'm not in favor of revoking the membership. I'm in favor of placing it on hold. I'm sorry. But if people become belligerent and staff feels that they're at risk of harm, this is something that should be made aware through Kindon to us immediately. And this is something that we can always come back and look at.
Okay, David, I see your hand up.
Only other point is if people are being abusive, are being at all physical, I have no problem within the purview of the city manager and staff recommending the city manager of revoking memberships. I don't think we have to tolerate that at any of our facilities, nor should our staff ever have to.
Mary Sue?
So what Erica just described, and we didn't hear from our librarian, I'm sure she has similar stories. Barbara, did you want to add anything?
Oh, we haven't had any problems with masking at this point. Most people are complying. I am concerned about staff checking the cards. I just don't know if we have enough staff to do that. But it's something I'll have to talk to Kindon about.
Yeah, I think we'll get to that in a minute when we look at resources. So my comment after hearing firsthand accounts from Erica was, this is egregious behavior, and these are public servants. And I have no problem revoking memberships, and maybe we revoke it for a 6-month period, and then we can, restart it after 6 months. Maybe they don't go back to the end of the line, but there has to be a consequence if they think they can come anytime they want and act that way. And by the way, I think staff has to have a clear understanding if they feel bodily threat or verbal assault, well, I'm not sure about verbal assault, but if they feel at all threatened, they need to call the deputies. And I know that the sheriff has said they're not going to be the enforcers, but we're now talking about bodily contact, and that's what I heard. So I say a strong consequence to protect our staff, revoking membership for a 6-month period. That addresses one concern about going in manually into the software. It will be a loss of revenue, but to ensure that our staff is protected, I have no problem with that. So I really hope that you all can reconsider that kind of compromise.
No, but Mary Sue, anybody, even now, before this policy, who's abusive, we can do that. That should not be exclusive to this policy. If someone's rude because they didn't get their tennis time, then we can do the same thing.
Okay. Then
I would not mix that with this.
Oh, no.
That's what I was going to say.
Wait, I don't know that that's the policy. Erica, can we absolutely revoke anyone when we feel the need?
I don't think we have.
Let me
Yes,
actually
I
jump in on
We
that one if
have,
I
no,
may.
we have,
We
Eric.
have the, if I could jump in briefly, we have the power under the existing Tennyson Swim Center rules to revoke or suspend a membership, and we have done so not in the case of a single incident of rudeness, but in cases involving violations of applicable law or threats of physical violence, et cetera. That power exists independent of this policy. And what I would recommend is that, as I'm roughly hearing a consensus from council, put memberships on hold for people who refuse to comply with either, that is either vaccination or testing. For a member who becomes belligerent or imposes threats of violence or is otherwise severely out of order, then the city can take advantage of the existing policy that allows for memberships to be suspended or revoked for those kinds of unacceptable behaviors. But that wouldn't be the default from what I'm hearing from council.
So-
Wouldn't be the default for
so
people
then
who
let
don't
me
comply with
just
the policy.
Let me just add then, okay, suspending, but it has to be clear for like a set period of time. 3 months the first time, 6 months the second time.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about if somebody becomes verbally or physically assaults a staff person.
We
A,
already
they
do
should-
that. That should not be part of this. I'm sorry if I interrupt, but we already do that and we've already done it. I can mention to you many cases where we've done it.
I didn't know. So I think it needs to be clear that if they're not going to follow this policy, what the consequence is, whatever that consequence is. And it could be suspension. I think that needs to be very clear, and staff needs to be empowered to do that. This is intolerable.
All right, Alicia?
Just, can you hear me? I just wanted to make sure that I think we're now discussing two different things. One is if you come to the Tennyson Swim Center and you're not vaccinated and you don't show a test, that's when your membership would be put on hold. But the minute anyone becomes belligerent or crosses the line, that's when we're looking at something else. And that's what's already in place and has happened before.
Happened many times before.
Right.
So we can emphasize it if you'd like, Mary Sue, in this policy, that the existing policy of suspending or revoking membership for violating the rules or belligerent behavior is enforced in this policy.
I think that would be great. And I think
Okay.
it's important for staff to hear that, to see that in writing, and to feel empowered that they can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Eric, I have stories for you later on.
Thank you.
David? You're muted, David.
There we go. Just briefly, if we get Erica to come back or Kindon and let us know once this goes into effect, how many people we're talking about that do place a hold on membership, suspend membership. If it's a smaller number than we have right now, that would be helpful to know. If it's a larger number, that would be helpful to know the beginning of the year as well.
Of
Okay,
course.
thank you. Kendon, there's one slide you didn't have that I would like to discuss. It's kind of important, and that is when this goes into effect. I do believe that we should give some notice, posted notices, and if we have email lists, email notices, so the public is aware of it, so that they don't just one day come to the center and all of a sudden are turned away. That's going to create more friction, and it's actually not very fair. So from the time it's enacted, there needs to be an education campaign, and then it goes into effect. I mean, does anybody disagree with that? It doesn't have to be a long time, but it has to be fair notice.
Not only do I agree with that, I think that there needs to be a point person that people can call, or a place people can go to get clarification or get questions answered. And that should be promoted as well for further questions, email COVID@City of Calabasas or call this phone number, and that should be highly promoted. And by
Very
the
good
way,
point.
thank you for the clarification that staff has the ability to suspend or revoke memberships at this point. I don't think we have to wait for this policy. If they are still experiencing any kind of problems, I hope they feel empowered, from today on.
Okay, our last slide here is regarding the implementation. We have those three kinds of choices.
And Mayor, before we do that,
Yes.
just real quickly, I do want to address, and I think it was brought up, just the resources to do this. What I'm hearing from council is that there is a consensus to do so, and we have direction. What we have not fully determined is the cost of this. It has been very difficult, I think, as many of you are aware, to find employees. The city is not immune to that. And so we are now putting a burden on existing staff to implement some of these things. And I just want that to be clear that our efforts would be to hire additional personnel or contractual agreements that would help support this. But we are, like all other entities, facing a labor shortage on that. And Erica, did you want to add anything on that?
I just wanted to just make the council aware of the memberships, and if we are going to suspend memberships, that there's going to be a loss of revenue for that, for the city, and just to make that clear, that we may not meet our revenue goals if that's the case. And the case with Top Seed and his revenue, that in his expectations, that just may be an issue. So.
Well, as Peter mentioned, Erica, if they want to do an alternative and Top Seed wants to check in people outside, maybe that's worth it to them to do. I mean, those are things that we can discuss later.
But I don't think revenue outweighs safety of staff.
I agree. We're now going to this last slide, and we have some options here on direction on how this is to be implemented. I mean, I think the third option would be the easiest if it's legal to do it that way. Matt?
Yes, it would be legal, and it would be like the other executive orders we've done on the COVID pandemic in the past, where it's issued by the city manager under the emergency declaration, and then would come back to council for affirmation at the next regular meeting. That also provides flexibility in terms of changing it as the program or the requirement needs to be adjusted over time.
All right, let's weigh in, everybody. Well, you have three options here. Peter?
Yeah, I'd like to see perhaps we could do the executive order tonight, give our city manager the go-ahead to move forward with that. And if we could resolve it or confirm it at the city council meeting, the first city council meeting in January. I know we need to have a time period to give the residents and members of the clubs and such warning. Could that be enacted in the next couple of weeks and use the period from the middle of December to the middle of January as our notification period for the public?
Yeah, council member, I think that's right in line. What I was thinking is it's going to take some time to develop the written directive or order, but then also that gives us a week and a half to announce, publicize, notify, and also, Mary Sue, to your point, have the right people in place to answer questions, information on the website, so forth. And then I think almost parallel, then once it is implemented, it's confirmed by the city council.
Okay.
Can I add it? Can I comment?
Yes, I'm sorry, Alicia, I didn't see your hand.
And
I
me
saw Mary
too.
Sue. Go ahead.
I do not want this taking much longer. Like this should have, in my opinion, already been in place. And the fact that so many steps are being discussed is still needing to take place. The second largest city in the entire country has it in effect. I mean, and we're only talking about a few city facilities. We're not imposing the mandate on private businesses. I think we can act much quicker, and I'd like to see that happen. I mean, the whole point is to protect public safety, and that to me is an immediate action. Not, I agree we need to alert the public and do all of that, but our staff can work quickly, and I want to see this happen as fast as possible.
Okay, Mary Sue.
I just wanted to make sure that there's a strong training component in this rollout for staff so that they get all their questions answered. It's clear what the steps are, and when and that they can, warn the individual of the consequence if they continue in the behavior, and just so that there's consistency in how the situations are handled and that staff feels ready. So that actually might take time. I mean, it's the holidays and while I agree with my colleague, Councilmember Weintraub, I agree with the executive order. I really think we can't underestimate the training component for staff.
Okay. Now, Matt, is all what we did sufficient, or would you like a vote on taking on all of our decision making?
No need for a formal vote. Consensus direction is fine, and I'll ask if there's any objection. And with that, we will then draft and proceed speedily to train and message and implement a policy.
Okay.
What timing are we looking at?
We could have a written policy prepped relatively quickly. I'll defer to Kindon on timing of getting the staff in place to be checking the cards at the door, et cetera. I'll defer to Kindon on that second question.
Can I just make one quick comment real quick? Some of our staff at City Hall is already doing it for meetings, and they're doing a great job. I've now been at 2 meetings where vaccination was required, and the staff did a fabulous job. So the ones that are doing it should be commended.
Thank you. And that's correct, council member. They have done a great job. To answer the question on timing, I really need to talk with Erica and Barbara, as those are the facilities that would be affected the most, and look at how we staff that, and not only staff it, but where that checkpoint is. Again, is that just at the counter or the reception desk, or is it set up outside? We need to explore that just a little bit more, and that determines some of the staffing levels as well.
Okay, I think we've done good work here. I think everyone gave their suggestions, and shockingly, we reached a consensus pretty easily. I think there was very little disagreement, which is unusual for this group. Congratulations. Anything further before we depart on from this subject? Okay, we have direction, Kendon. Thank you, Erica, and thank you, Barbara. We'll move to future agenda items. All right, then I will announce it on December 8th is our next meeting. It is a regularly scheduled meeting. It is our annual reorganization with a safety protocols in place reception at Founders Hall afterwards. Kendon, do you have any announcement you want to make on how the meeting's going to run? I have many questions from the public. Can they come, where they're going to be, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor. So the way it's worked out right now is, and this is based on previous council direction, and so we're open to any changes. But what Ani has implemented so far is that only council members and their immediate family members would be in the council chambers. We will limit and put seats accordingly by groups or households. And we would also then have the lobby next to the council chambers available for those who might come to the meeting for either a public comment or a presentation or whatever that might be. All other individuals would be directed towards Founders Hall. Everybody will be checked for vaccination status, both at at the council chambers and at the Founders Hall. And then once the reorg is completed, council members, family members, staff, the limited staff that's in that office would then transfer over to Founders Hall. It will be viewed, or it will be shown on the screen at Founders Hall. And so that those who are participating in Founders Hall will be able to participate and view the reorganization. As
People can also participate via Zoom.
Correct.
If they wish.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any questions from anybody on this? All right. In that case, wish you all well for the next week, and I will savor my last week as mayor and see you all next week. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.